So you arrive on one of these things. I'm not sure what you would call it. It looks like a
Quads.
mechanical monster of some kind. But it goes out in the woods and brings you and your camera with it. And that's where we are, is out in the woods in Montana, in the general area of Bonner, Montana. And we're just scoping around through the woods here for a minute. But yeah, these gorgeous trees and gorgeous colors. It's late October 2018, and these trees just reach all the way up to the heavens. I swear you never saw such long, tall, skinny, straight trees. You look at all that. Hey, Jeff,
Yes, sir.
you want to let us into the activities of what you do here at this place?
Sure. My son and daughter-in-law, they teach English in Korea, and they have summer months off, and they come back here and kind of do a work vacation. You know, what can they do on the property here for 2 months and still make money? So the tiny house phenomenon is really catching on, and so they decided to build this little one. It was based on a blueprint by Deke or Derek. What's his last name? Well, I don't know. Anyhow, this guy's pretty well known on the tiny house circuit. So they got his plans, and then they built this A-frame cabin that they rent out on Airbnb. It's been pretty popular for them. The reviews are really good. Kind of the neat thing about this one is you can sleep like this. It's just a step above camping. They call it clamping. More adventurous ones at night, you can open this window and then sleep under the stars basically, and let some cool air in or whatnot. But anyhow, so that's how it works. We designed it for my wife to do. She's a grandma. I figured, well, if grandma can do it, the general public can do it. Yeah. So it opens up. It's pretty rustic. All they got is a little one solar panel. You can charge up your cell phone, and I'm trying to think. Oh, they got a little electric fan up there and a light and whatnot. Normally it's decked out. We put honey from the property out there for the guests, and they got a coffee maker. And
Well, let's go up in there and take a closer look, Jeff.
so this was all done, or for the most part done, with recycled material off around the property or around the area.
Aha.
And I think he's got about $700 in the whole structure.
Okay. That sounds like it could fit in anybody's budget.
Right, right.
Awesome.
Yeah, come on in.
Let me step up here.
So it's only 8 foot by 8 foot. Yeah, with the wall open though, you feel like, you know, if it's, well, we don't get a whole lot of rain.
It's kind of like wide open spaces,
right.
huh?
So you can sit here with the rain beating down, and it's a quiet place that people seem to like to come and recharge your batteries.
Well, I'll be doggone. I tell you what, you want to find a place to have a seat?
All right.
I'll drag this chair around here and we'll just talk about all this.
Sure.
And anything else you want to talk about. I'm going to go right around the corner. Let's see what we got here. It's just beautiful country out here. And I mean, you are in the middle of nowhere. I think you said your driveway is like a half a mile long.
Yeah, a little better than a half.
And you made that driveway without going to the federal government for a grant, right?
That's correct.
Self-sufficient.
Mostly just to prove it can be done. You know, how hard is it to put in a flat surface?
Awesome, man.
So this particular one is the third structure my son built. We got this property in 2010. We moved to Montana in 1997, wanting to get out of the rat race and keeping up with the Joneses and just show my kids, they were still both in high school at the time, we came from Michigan, that there's other ways to do things out here. kind of my goal when I moved to Montana was to have enough property where I could cut my kids off to each other, and we have our own little Walton Mountain type thing. Got a real good rapport with our kids, and it worked for a while. My daughter used to live on 20 acres over here. Her, the granddaughter and grandson have since moved to Boise, and well, they come back in the summer from time to time and camp on their property. And then, of course, my son and daughter-in-law, they've been here every year since they moved to South Korea, and it's a great time. Uh, Hopefully one day those guys get some money in the bank or close to retirement that we can all live here on the same piece of property and just enjoy each other's company.
Well, you could do that, except for Agenda 21 that would kind of like to stop people from doing this. But you're having a personally responsible, self-sufficiency approach to a simple life in the country, and you seem to be doing real well with that. You and your wife are happy people, pleasant to be with, and confident in your own vision of life. And if you want, I'm with the mental militia, so I'd be happy to hear anything you'd want to say about how you are comfortable and how your philosophy seems to come into play with your decision to come out to the country here in Montana.
Uh, Back in the 80s, I hunted Colorado one time and never even come close to filling a tag, but it was a wonderful experience in the mountains, and something about the mountains just drew me to it. And so when I got back from that hunt, I was talking to my wife. I don't know why, but I want to move west. Something was calling me here. The beauty of this nature, just I don't know how you can't help but feel good every morning when you wake up in something like this. And so that was a big part of the move to come out here. Just quality of life, a simpler life. But we've been here 20 years now, and there hasn't been one anything that suggested it was the wrong move for us. I mean, I think when you're on the right path in life, opportunity opens itself up to you. I was still working when we first moved here, and I was a union iron worker back in Detroit, and I should have taken a huge pay cut having done, this wasn't a well thought out plan other than something I wanted to do. But it's kind of funny how life works. All of a sudden I meet a guy from Kansas and a guy from Arkansas. They took a liking to me. They drugged me all over the country, made me a superintendent. And I think why they did it is they could see that I was just a happy person in life because I was pursuing what I wanted. And, once they took a liking to me, they gave me the opportunity to create this for myself, and I'm really grateful to those two guys. Mean a lot to me in my life, and they're always welcome here anytime. Because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be sitting right here today.
So, but you're retired now, and I've known you for years, quite a few years, in fact, and you're always happy, but you're also outgoing with your sharing of your perceptions in life.
Okay.
And you want to talk in that area for a little bit?
Yeah. Relationships have always fascinated me. I was the youngest of the family for most of my childhood. Everybody was telling me what I could do, what I couldn't do. It seemed like I was low on the total pole. So I don't know if that had a big part of my disregard for authority or rejection of authority in my life, but a lot of it came from, and my dad, he's been gone 6 years today, and he was an authoritarian type parent, and it's pretty interesting that I would ask, can I do something? He'd say no, and then I'd ask why, and he'd say because I said so.
Because I said so.
Yeah, and it's funny because I got two sisters and a brother, and two of them were mad at him till the day he died for the most part, and I wasn't. He gave me the example of not how to parent, and so I think both my kids, there might have been four spankings in their whole entire life. It was more of a token spanking on the diaper because you couldn't reason with them. They were too young to reason with at that time, but it worked out well. And so I kind of learned that abusive relationships just it's not the way we're supposed to live. And so I've come to realize government is an abusive relationship in my life, and so I reject it. You know, I mean, we laugh at people when they, or we don't laugh at them. We see women that are in abusive relationships, and we scratch our head and wonder, why do they stay into that? You know, how stupid are they? But when we look at our relationship with government, it's no different. And people seem to have come to embrace Big Brother. I guess I just went the other way.
Yeah, well, it's an external authority, and it is formulated by the will of the collective. The group mind is where governments are created. And so that is not necessarily directly coming from your own heart and soul. So it's external authority. And a lot of good people, starting with going back to Henry David Thoreau and others down through the 1800s and 1900s, understand that a lot of people really prefer this collective external authority for controlling what their neighbors are going to be doing, which is a form of aggression. And that form of aggression is backed by the military police power. So they can vote in a new property tax on you and your property here when you really don't want to pay any more property tax.
And or feel that I should have to pay
what you
rent
are paying
to them when it's not my own.
Exactly. That goes back to property rights, which is part of personal rights. Man, listen, at the risk of interrupting the conversation here, could I get you to move over this way about 2 feet? Right, I think right there might be quite a bit better.
All right.
Because I'm getting a shadow across part of your face.
Okay.
And that hat, maybe, can you pull that back some? Oh, that's perfect. That's awesome. Now we got you full and living Technicolor. So external authority versus your personal self-governance. And personal self-governance is a good way to go because it enables you to practice not aggressing anybody else. You're happy to let everybody else be what everybody else wants to be, and you expect and deserve for them to let you be what you want to be. You own this property. If you want to put up a little mini structure here for various purposes, you don't need or shouldn't need a county permit from the collective government in order to do something on your own property like this. So you agree with all that, right?
I sure do. I mean, we're treated like children, or we're thought of as children.
Or worse.
Or worse, right.
Cattle.
Yeah, well, that too.
They milk us like we're a herd of cows.
Right.
And they govern us, they fence us, limit us, control us.
Right.
And that's all fine and dandy if their power is not overpowering for the individual who is actually the source of their authority. All authority, I'm a Thomas Jefferson fan. All authority begins in the sovereign soul of the human being who is connected to a mentality and an emotional center and a sense of self as long as he's in a body. That is self-governance, and once it has a moral quality added to it, like do no harm to your neighbor, be kind to everyone, supportive of everything, and yet be free to develop your life the way you want to. Government tends not to trust people to make good decisions like you have made, and you're a living example of why government should make exceptions to its rule if it's got to be making rules. You know, exceptions are okay, and those people like you who want to live free, who are supportive in your community. I mean, you've told me already you helped plow that county road out there when there's 3 feet of snow on the ground.
Sure.
And you don't charge for that because you're a good neighbor. And that is the Montana way.
Mm-hmm.
I notice the people all over western Montana where I've been, they're all like that. They're happy to help the neighbor, happy to be good friends and associates in the rural culture and in the little small towns out in the rural part of the state. So you have gone through a lot of different political graduations where you may have been a Democrat or a Republican or a Libertarian or this or that, and you've ended up at this point in your life where anarchy, and especially the philosophical roots of anarchy, which is self-governance, that seems to have more weight to it than all the other religions and political parties and the futile occupation of the masses. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I get into talks with people and my Christian friends. I ask them the question: Are people bad? And they tend to say yes, that we're all born bad. And I have a real difficult time with that. In my lifetime, I'm 59 years old. I can count about 5 different incidents between an assault and a couple thefts and a fraud over my life. So over a lifetime of relationships with people, I can only count 5 times that I've been aggressed against, we'll say. That tells me people are good. And so they've convinced us that people are so bad we have to have government to protect us. Well, maybe even if that was true, then I look at it, government hasn't delivered its end of the deal. And so that there itself, I guess there's number 6. They committed a fraud against me because they don't protect my individual rights. They tax my labor, they tax property that I've worked my whole entire life from. At one point they threatened me with for violating one of their laws, taking everything that I've worked 30 years for. And so as I did my progression, I started out as a Democrat because I was born into a Democrat family. My dad was a union iron worker, I was a union iron worker. But as I was going through there, I looked for a sense of fairness, and I thought, geez, the unions get favorable legislation through the court system that the individual doesn't get. Well, that isn't fair. I mean, all my union friends, well, it's kind of a hooray for me. I got mine, fuck everybody else. But I seen that just didn't feel, that wasn't right. And so then I got away from the Democrat Party, and of course the opposite of the Democrat was the Republican. I couldn't quite go that far. I jumped on the Ross Perot bandwagon with an independent for a while and campaigned for him and listened to all the bullshit of a third party was a wasted vote. But I come to, in my own personal experience, talking politics with friends and family throughout that time, I knew about equal numbers of loyal Republicans and loyal Democrats. And what I found he pulled equally from both sides. And so that whole lost or wasted vote thing was just a reason for the 2 sides to keep the third one out. And if you go back all the way to George Washington's farewell address, he talked about what the party system would do to this country and pretty much destroy it. And if we look at the political system as it is today, it's one side of the aisle fighting for the power to impose its will on the other side, and then 8 years or 4 years, whichever it is, then they reverse the process. And this just seems insanity. It's yet another cycle of abuse. And until we break that cycle of it, we're just going to live in conflict, and it doesn't need to be that way.
And you recently sent me a chart that someone sent you, and it's a breakdown of the percentages of the American voting public and the non-voting public. And looking at that pie chart, it shows clearly that a minority called voters
Right.
are actually empowering a government to control the majority,
Right.
who don't even bother to go vote anymore because for many reasons.
For many reasons, right? You know, I mean, we're told because they're too lazy and apathetic. Maybe we're disgusted. Maybe we don't want to dirty ourselves with such a system that's so corrupt.
Yeah, well, as Claire Wolfe always put it, why vote? It only encourages them.
Right.
Uh, I kind of always have liked that. But go ahead, and I just had to interrupt you there.
I forget where I was going now. Well, it's interesting that whole concept. There really seems to be the push this election coming up here in 2018 on getting out, register to vote, and I think that's because they're losing legitimacy. I believe voting is is getting less each cycle after cycle, and I'm wondering why isn't this 41? Why isn't anybody asking the 41% why they aren't voting, and why aren't we given a platform? And if government is to be a legitimate source of power or a legitimate anything, then I think before we decide who we want for president, it ought to be put to the voter, do you consent to this? And if it's no, to have any legitimacy, we ought to be allowed not to consent.
Well, the consent of the governed is presumed in their propaganda proposals, but there's really very little concern about the consent of the governed.
Right.
The big factor is which party is going to get to tell the others and the non-voters what they can and can't do. So I I don't know what to think about that, except that chart you showed me showed a small percentage of the American people voted Republican.
Mm-hmm. 18, I think it was.
18%.
Right.
And another percentage voted Democrat.
That was 18 too.
And then you had 1 or 2% voted Libertarian.
Correct.
Then you had all the other people out there, which was a bigger percentage
41.
than either the Republicans or Democrats.
Right.
And they didn't even bother to go cast a vote.
Well, what were they going to vote for? Maybe they were not voting out of principle because we're offered a piece of cyanide or arsenic, and they decide to choose neither.
None of the above.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Henry David Thoreau did say that government is best which governs least. Mm-hmm. And our government no longer was concerned about how little it can govern. It's grown, concentrated its powers to see how much it can govern. But Thoreau also said that when mankind is ready, we shall have a government that governs not at all. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the roots of anarchy. Mm-hmm. Because everybody becomes personally responsible, living a moral, upright, respectable, and productive and fruitful life, which produces happiness and prosperity. Mm-hmm. We all know that. Mm-hmm. And everybody's doing that. They don't need a government.
They don't.
They don't need a government because they have moral guide, conscience, intelligence, natural affection for the miracle of life. It's a wonderful path and an approach that is totally disregarded by the mainstream media, mm-hmm. by government proclamations.
Even by the churches.
Even by the churches, yeah. Most of them are 501c3 phenomena,
right.
who have to toe the two-party line, right. and absolve themselves of any responsibility to consider a more natural and spiritually enhanced way of life. Mm-hmm. Well, so you're a guy who's here ahead of his time a little bit, but you're a living example of a man who has built his own life, has done things the way he chose to do them, and like me, so far you've got away with it. So we're always happy to know that if the bastards take us out today, they can't take back the wonderful life that we have had.
You betcha.
We got away with it,
I don't know if you remember back in the 60s or 70s, Anita Bryan, a day without orange juice, like a day without sunshine. Well, we practice a day without a little civil disobedience. We feel like we missed out on that day. So that's
Yeah,
we are.
back to Thoreau again. He keeps popping up in
Uh,
this little conversation, but it's essay on the duty of civil disobedience. Americans aren't really taught that these days, unless they're on George Soros's payroll, where their idea of civil disobedience is go make street theater
right.
and bruise a few faces and maybe burn up a car or something. But we are not given alternative points of view or perspectives by any of the media sources or the educational system
For sure.
or the banking monetary system or the federal government system, which now has bled down into the state legislatures and who are now dominating and bullying the county governments and the rural municipalities. So what's left is anarchists like yourself and so many other good people that we know
Sure.
who are willing to just go forth and live a natural life and try our best to not get squished under the mechanical wheel of collective governance.
And all the while, spread our thoughts in a peaceful manner and try to get people to see it for themselves. Question us, challenge us.
Question authority.
Right?
Ask questions about everything. Ask questions about, have I been possibly programmed, conditioned, trained, feducated, indoctrinated,
Taught from a age of 5 to put my hand and pledge something that I don't even know what I'm pledging to, and say it often enough till it becomes part of my DNA.
Yeah, and there again, it was Francis Bellamy that wrote the first Pledge of Allegiance. And we find out later he was a dang socialist,
Right?
but more so, he was a statist, and more so, he was a globalist. And the whole idea of getting kids trained to reverently pledge an allegiance to a government is, that parallels what Hitler was doing with the German people. Heil Hitler.
Right. And I've seen, and I think something Curry has a website up there that says back in the 20s and maybe in the teens, the salute was the Caesar salute, and then
It was.
Then it went to the.
Hitler adopted that from
Right.
that, and our school children in public schools were using that straight out arm salute, and I forget the guy's name too, but I've been to his website. He's got some very interesting.
Rex Curry.
Rex Curry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Rex Curry. Very interesting photographs of classrooms of students
Right.
doing this. And I've always, once I started waking up late in life and questioning authority, questioning the history that's been hidden and looking into things, to find out that the government is not America. The U.S. federal government is not America. America is sitting right here in front of my camera in nature, in a little structure he built for his own personal pleasure. And that land and the people that live on it, that is America. And we don't have to pledge our allegiance to that. We just love our fellow man. And that is moral high ground. And there really should be no complaint, other than if a government is wanting to control our lives and our thought processes, then they're going to have a problem with people like us. But normal American people, they don't have a problem with people doing what you're doing. Americans wouldn't really care. What the government has done using that Pledge of Allegiance and using all of their propaganda tactics and incorporating the services of the media to do this It's caused people to think that the U.S. government is America. And that's just
Well,
wrong.
and that's if you take an anti-war stance. Why do you hate the soldiers? I never said I hate the soldiers. I perhaps love the soldiers more because of my anti-war stance and speaking out about preemptive strikes by my government and an aggressive foreign policy.
To help the poor soldiers that don't know, because they've been trained and programmed, they don't know that we are using them to commit
Right.
an international war crime on foreign lands that our Constitution makes no provision for us to do.